Welcome, Highlander fans, to Bloody Kings, a Highlander podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we cover everything on the Highlander docket, so to speak, here. My name is Kevin. It's been a little while since we've seen you guys, but we're back, and I'm excited. And on this episode, we're going to have a little fun, and we're going to make our own Highlander reboot. We'll get into more of that. We'll get into more of that later. But right now, I need to introduce my co-host, my brother from another mother, actor extraordinaire, fighter extraordinaire, martial arts extraordinaire, fight choreography, just total badass. Let's welcome my buddy, Big Lee Fillingsness. What's up, buddy?
Forgive me, Father, for I am a worm. Hey, how you doing? I have to make an entrance. Come on, man. I got the sword, right?
Dude, I love the Kurgan sword. That's awesome.
We'll just set that right over here.
Nice. Careful. Don't make sure it doesn't come apart or anything. So, yeah.
Oh, it's in the briefcase now. So,
welcome, sir. It's been a while. Glad to have you back.
Yeah, it is good to be back. I got to say, I'm glad to be doing something that involves just being in a chair.
Nice.
I've been working like crazy lately.
Yeah, you've been working on some films, doing some fight choreography and stuff like that, and acting as well, right?
Yeah. Been crazy since the last time we did an episode. I had 2 features premiere starring some people that you guys might have heard of. Frank Wally, who was, to me, he's always going to be Jim from Career Opportunities, but also
Right.
He was Brad in Pulp Fiction.
Yep.
What? Say what again?
Say what again? Yes.
Also got to work with Tom Cavanaugh, aka Dr. Harrison Wells from The Flash, aka JD's brother from Scrubs, and
Ed.
Ed. And my favorite, and I walked up to him and told him that my favorite thing he ever did was a show called Love Monkey, and he actually talked my ear off for a while. He was like, okay, most people didn't remember that show. And I'm like, it was brilliant. It was cut way too soon. And we talked about the show. He told me like it's his life. But if anybody out there has, a few hours, it's 9 of the finest hours of television, I think, that were produced in the early 2000s.
Nice.
Who else? Chris Mulkey, who was in, the X-Files, and Jeremy Davies, who was Dickie Bennett on Justified, but probably most famous as being Corporal Upham in Saving Private Ryan.
Nice.
So your boys are getting to at least be in the neighborhood of some famous people and some big projects. Got a few that I'll be able to announce later, but more people that you might have heard of in the next year. So,
well, I'm glad you're busy, and it's funny too because we've been real busy doing some other stuff, and we honestly, as Highlander fans, and by the way, if you're listening to this, make sure you check out the YouTube video because we're going to have some cool slides to show for this topic. There hasn't really been a lot of news when it comes to Highlander, and so we took a little break and we're like, you know what, we got some ideas and we're going to touch on a couple of those. But I figure it would be fun to touch on the Highlander movie because, as we know, it's been mired in delays, and Henry Cavill has been attached to it to star, and Chad Stahelski, the director, but it's just been in development hell for so long. Lee, I'm getting a little impatient here, so I figure why don't we just reach out to the fans and let's just make our own Highlander film and make our suggestions of what we would do, right?
Sounds like a plan, sir.
Cool. All right. Well, so that's what we're going to do. But first, you know what? I think it's time to head. Oh, I don't know. Let's go into Joe's. What do you say?
I like that idea.
It's good to be back in Joe's, dude. I mean, where do you want to sit?
Let's belly up to the bar so we can get the alcohol right away. We don't need to wait.
That's right, man. Yeah, definitely. It's been a while. Jeez, I miss Joe's. I miss the scenes in Joe's and just the camaraderie in Joe's and the TV series and
the music.
The music. We always need to We need more Joes. That's what I'm saying, and it's good to be back here. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about in Joe's first, usually we talk about some Highlander news and among other things before we get to our main topic. But I thought most importantly, when we were taking our hiatus, I did do several posts about this as well. Is that the Highlander has been released on 4K now. And not only has it been released in 4K high definition, but also there is new special features on these new releases here. And the one that I'm showing right now, Lee, that's the one that came from the UK. I bought one myself here, and it comes with the cool goodies. Obviously, the couple of discs and some like poster. What do you call those? Lobby poster cards type things.
Yeah.
There's a comic book in there. There's some buttons and a really nice booklet in there as well. It's a really, really nice little limited edition there. And then also we have some of the other ones here. And it's funny too, because when I was in Australia for 3 weeks visiting my wife and such, they actually had released this one here. And if you're looking at the pictures here, it's the one on the far right. And in the middle is the US normal release one, this new kind of design that they have, a new art design there, where Connor's holding both the claymore and the katana. And then on the left is the Best Buy Steelbook limited edition one they have there. It's got a little slipcase on it. Some people aren't really fans of the Highlander font on there. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Lee, because you and I are going to be doing an episode about this, specifically the special features. And I did want to mention them really quickly here. We've got the Immortal Attraction, and that's this one right here that I'm holding up here. It has these listing on here. Just to clarify, all of these 4Ks have these special features. But the trick is you need a 4K player to watch these. So has the Immortal Attraction of Highlander, looking back at 4 decades of Highlander magic. This is all new stuff. New, a kind of magic music of the Immortals. And it's a featurette on the soundtrack. And new, Capturing Immortality, interview with the photographer David James. And new, there can be only one Kurgan. Clancy Brown remembers Highlander. And also, and we're very excited about this, new audio commentary by our friend and author, Jonathan Melville, who is the author of A Kind of Magic, The Making of the Original Highlander, the book that I have here in my hand. If you have not read that, make sure you check it out. And we also have interviewed him regarding this. There's also audio commentary by Russell McKahey and William Panzer and Peter Davis. I think those are the older ones, of course, that they added on there. There is a Blu-ray disc that does also include those older interviews with like Christopher Lambert and stuff like that. But there's a lot to chew on here, Lee.
I'm looking forward to it. I am a junkie for special features, and especially special features for Highlander. I mean, I've gone through everything from all the movies, from the TV show, all that stuff. I have to say I'm in agreement with the people that don't like the font on that.
Oh, you mean the Best Buy one here? Yeah.
Yeah, that sort of looks like something that I'd draw in the notebook in like sophomore year of high school for like my super sweet metal band.
Yeah.
Like a grown-up got paid to put that on a project.
What about this? What about this art here that is a part of the U.S. release, and it shows Connor in his Scottish attire, but he's got the claymore and he's got the katana, and this is a cool slipcover that comes with it right here. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that, but I don't know why he swapped the blade with Glamdring on there, because that's not the MacLeod blade. That was made in Gondolin by the elves. You could not ask for a finer blade.
This is the one I picked up in Australia. It doesn't have a slipcover, but it's got the cool 4K. But by the way, just to
perfect.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool. And over my shoulder here, I've got the actual poster that came in the deluxe edition. I had to frame it. Came in this edition here. That one's kind of hard to find now, cheap. It's pretty expensive on eBay and secondhand stuff, but I had to put the poster up. But I did want to let people know that all 4K discs are universal. They don't have any region coding. If you buy the 4K in Australia, you can play it on USA players and vice versa. So that's the one cool thing about the 4K stuff. So Lee and I will, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's one cover they should make for like the true super fans that have too much money. They should have just the original movie poster, like that crazy psychotic face.
Yeah, the
Like,
one makes him look like he's done weird stuff with weird people. Yeah.
yeah, as opposed to cutting somebody's head off in a garage and
Yeah.
yeah, like like a normal person does.
That's a good point. Yes. All right. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in Joe's Lee is, there's a Facebook group called Highlander Reboot. They shared it obviously, and if you want any news on the Highlander Reboot, you can check them out too. But there was an article that was posted in our group, the Blood of Kings Facebook group, as well as our friends at Highlander Heart. And there was an article that came from a site called Giant Freaking Robot, which I tell people beware. It is one of those click sites there. And unfortunately, their report says that exclusive Henry Cavill dropped from Highlander. Chris Hemsworth eyed for replacement. Henry Cavill has been let go from Highlander, is being replaced by Chris Hemsworth. And this was published on about January 25th by James Bruzelia from Giant Freaking Robot. Now, I know from being fans of other stuff, when anything is put out by Giant Freaking Robot, you can't always trust it. I'm not taking this as this is happening. But I did want to read the article and get your thoughts on this. So it says, Henry Cavill seems to be having himself a whirlwind of opportunities, but also cancellations that are combating those new opportunities. Through our trusted and proven resources, we can report that Henry Cavill has now been dropped from starring in the Highlander remake, and Chris Hemsworth is now being targeted for the role. Cavill, who has been let go from 3 separate franchises in the last few months, Henry Cavill being let go from Highlander, is crushing, as we think that he would have shined in that role, especially after how well he did as, is it Geralt in The Witcher?
Yeah. Geralt.
Yeah, Geralt in The Witcher. However, we would have also note that Chris Hemsworth is a fantastic replacement. Though Thor has been mostly a sword and axe wielder, we think Hemsworth is going to do quite well swinging a longsword. Henry Cavill being let go from Highlander might also be because the man is going to be too busy to take on more franchises. He's going to be serving as the star and executive producer of the Warhammer 40,000 series and movie for Amazon Prime Video. We also reported that Cavill is being targeted for The Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2, with Guy Ritchie returning to write and direct. Hemsworth might have also played Thor for the final time, though that has not been confirmed. Thor would be appearing in other MCU properties, but a Thor solo movie might be a few years in the way. Hemsworth might be a better schedule than Henry Cavill, making him better choice to head up the new Highlander movies. There has yet to be further updates about the Highlander reboot, other than Chad Stahelski still being attached to direct it, and the movie remaining in pre-production stages. Stahelski famously directed the John Wick series, and he is also being tasked with directing the Ghost of Tsushima adaptation. Stahelski has clearly seen more value in dumping Henry for Chris Hemsworth for the Highlander reboot. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Lee?
Well, I'd say it's probably crap. And anytime I hear Giant Freaking Robot, all I can think of is Boondock Saints' huge friggin' guy theory. But I think.
Do you want to clarify what you just said?
Yeah, in Boondock Saints, there's a guy that gets possibly stomped to death. They just see footprints on the back of a giant, and must have been a huge freaking guy just stomping on this guy, serious stomping. So,
gotcha.
It's a quote in the movie, and it always makes me laugh every time I see Giant Freaking Robot because I'm a juvenile. But I will say that Cavill season 1 in The Witcher, his swordplay was crap. Season 2 was amazing, so I was kind of looking forward to seeing what he would do with the Connor McLeod role. I believe that he's obviously still attached because nobody other than Giant Freaking Robot has said anything about it.
Right.
So
yeah, I like to hear it from like Variety and Hollywood Reporter and stuff like that, people that kind of know what's going on. And when they say their trusted resources, as in Giant Freaking Robot, who is that?
Yeah.
Another click site? I don't know.
The one thing that kind of makes me wonder, though, is him being very unceremoniously removed from 2 franchises in very short order.
Yeah.
The DCU thing is one thing,
Superman. Yeah.
but also him leaving The Witcher.
For
And
Liam
everyone,
Hemsworth, right?
yeah,
Chris's brother.
yeah. Which I can kind of see it. I'm not, in love with the actor as the character. The character, I mean, he's a video game character, so it's literally all of us. We all play as him. So what he looks like doesn't really matter as long as he's got white hair and yellow eyes. But if it did go to Chris Hemsworth, which I don't think it is because he's dealing with some illnesses right now. We found out that he's got some genetic predispositions. I wouldn't have thought so before his movie Extraction, because as much fun as his movies are, he's never had a truly good fight against a character that exists in the MCU.
That's a good point.
He's fought CGI Hulk. Those are his best fights, just hands down.
Right.
He never had a good fight against Loki. They're all kind of like,
and he had a couple of great fights in that film, especially the hand-to-hand combat stuff. And there's an Extraction 2 that's coming out too.
Yeah. And so I think he could definitely handle the fights. Before that, he kind of did pose foo. It wasn't really fighting, but Extraction shows that he can do a lot of stuff.
So would you be disappointed if they went to Hemsworth for the lead in Highlander, whether it's Connor or whatever?
Yeah, I think he's just a little too approachable and normal for, and I'm saying this also as an actor who gets pigeonholed because of appearance. He could, be a much better actor than we're imagining because, he's done some great performances, Rush, In the Heart of the Sea, all that kind of stuff that isn't just beefcake stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that looking at Cavill's performance in Man of Steel, as this person with godlike powers, kind of sent out from his family, living alone, kind of unsure of his place in the world, that was, preparation for playing Highlander.
And I don't think he gets the credit, Cavill, for being a good actor. And I know Chris Hemsworth is a good actor, but there's just something about Cavill I was hoping to really kind of see that. So I hope this isn't true, but if it is, I'll be a little disappointed. But I just don't, I know they want to go for a big name because that would obviously bring a lot more people to the project, which I understand.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and let's do one other fun thing here in the Joe's here. Let's go ahead and do one more thing. That is the immortal buzz, and that means that we like to include our fans in our discussion. And what I did was, of course, for this show, making our own Highlander reboot, I put a post in Blood of Kings. I also put a post on Highlander Heart, our friends there, Grant Kempster and all those great people there at Highlander Heart. Reach out to everyone. We got some really good ideas and suggestions here. And I'm going to get into Brady stuff a little bit later because he came up with some great suggestion casting. So I'm going to get in there, but I just want to throw one name out there that he suggested, Karen Gillan. Just going to throw that out there. He touched on the music, and we'll could bring this up a little bit later, but he said the music would have to be Queen related or influenced. So Brian May and Roger Taylor. That would be great, Lee, if they were at least, part of the, can you imagine them not maybe obviously either re-recording or writing new music, but at least maybe hand picking other artists to either play these old songs from Highlander or even some new ones? Would you be up for that?
Yeah. And I think, especially after reading Melville's book on how Brian May came up with some of the music, it doesn't have to be Queen that sings it.
It's interesting you say that too. Yes, it could be other people. He also mentioned the band Muse would be a good choice because they did music for World War Z. But you're right, getting some other actors to either sing those same songs or something similar, right?
Yeah, and I'd also be kind of interested to see, just because of how complex Queen's music is, what if they did the score?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, I mean, it's kind of hard to, keep the score away from Queen's music. I mean, so much of it is kind of wrapped around Who Wants to Live Forever, anyways, that it's there.
yeah.
Maybe modernize it, maybe not so heavy on the synth, maybe make it orchestral.
What funny you
Do
say that.
something there.
Joel Lawwell said, I think the music should maybe stick to the Gaelic, Scottish type stuff, maybe for a change. Maybe have Sarah Brightman do it as a question of honor for the soundtrack. I like that idea. Definitely have some of that in there. I think would be really cool. Kind of mix it up with, because if it's taking place in current day and then in the past, you want to have music that reflects both. So I think that would be kind of cool. Brian Hanley says Clancy Brown is Ramirez. That'd be kind of cool.
Yep.
Wes Cronin, by the way, got to give a shout out to him. He just released his fan film, Highlander, Pains of the Heart. Make sure you check it out. It's on YouTube. It's also on Blooded Kings. And he said, I already made my movie, and I expect it will be better than any reboot Hollywood comes out with. And I love that because Wes and his group and crew did a great job. And he said he spent like a couple of years putting that together. It's about an hour long, and he plays Duncan MacLeod, and it takes place obviously during the 90s era with Duncan MacLeod and his past. So make sure you check that out.
I got to say,
Brian,
one film guy to another, I really appreciate what they did. I know how much work that had to have been. People that haven't done it have no idea how insane making a movie is. And when you do it on a fan film budget, it's even more insane because you are begging and you are, squeezing, every booger out of George Washington's nose on that quarter to get paid for. I mean, it's crazy.
yeah, Wes did a good job with the music, the sound effects, the story, and he touches on a couple of interesting points in the story that I think hit home even nowadays. So make sure you check out Highlander Pains of the Heart. Good job, Wes. Brian Procopio says, I will beat this drum forever. Much better as a streaming show over 2 years or so. 2 6 to 8 episodes arcs a year following the last 4 Immortals, all leading up to the Gathering event where all the stories come together. Give us more reason to care when random Immortals die instead of one flashback and dead. Let us see how the final 4 originated, become Immortals, were trained and came up in who they were. Cause of the internet fan base to have legit people that they are rooting for to win it all outside of just the main good guy. Hell, maybe even get enough of a backstory of the Kurgan and we all see his downfall, a la Anakin Skywalker, or realize the quickenings made him the way he ended up. Just opens it all up so much more potential than trying to cram it all into 2-hour film that has to work and compete with the original. I love his passion in this, and I agree. But one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, Lee, is that I want to start with a movie first. I want to lay the groundwork for future expansion. Someone had made a comment about why does it have to be a Highlander Scottish guy? Why can't we be talking about another random immortal somewhere else? That's fine, but if you're gonna do this story justice, I think it should be a Highlander. It should take place in Scotland. Get those roots done, but don't paint yourself in a corner like the original one did. Leave it open. There doesn't have to be the gathering in this one. What do you think?
I'd say until about a year and a half ago, I agreed with his take on this. And then the Old Guard came out. And they did a fantastic job of introducing a broadcast of characters, all of whom you care about. You do have the main one, but that's not the entire driving part of the story. And I think they really threw the gauntlet down. And I said this when we did the podcast. It's like they're letting us know, or they're letting Chad know, this is how good a movie can be. And it's up to you to do better. And I think it's been proven.
That's a great point. They did a great job of teasing us about where these immortals have been in the Old Guard movie for a very long time, and what happens when a new immortal character comes about and gets into the fold of things. And the way that movie ended opened up more questions, but it didn't paint itself in a corner, which I loved about it, that like the original Highlander did. And good news, Old Guard 2 should be coming out this year. They were filming it last year, so I'm excited for that. Joe Lawwill said there better be at least one flashback scene with a bloody Scottish war and lots of bagpipe and war drums. I love that. That'd be cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that needs to happen, and I think that Outlander threw down the gauntlet on how big that needs to be too.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so I went over to Highlander Heart and threw up some stuff as well, and we got some replies there. And let's see here. Colleen Best says, as for actors, I like to see lesser known actors playing the lead immortal roles. I like that idea. I would cast both Ryan Pavey as the new ladies' man and Dashiell Connery as the older immortal who looks younger but is more ancient. I like that idea. I looked up that actor, Dashiell Connery, by the way. He is young right now, but what if he is actually like 2,000 years old?
Kind of like they did with I'm forgetting the name of the old vampire in True Blood that was the kid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
something like that.
Even Kenny in the Highlander TV series, he was 800 years old or something like that. So yeah, I like that idea. A younger, older immortal, so to speak. So yeah. She says, I would have Jim Burns back as Joe Dawson as the current mentor and retired head of the New Watchers. I like that idea. Amanda Wiss would be back as Randy McFarlane. I figure the reason she disappeared back in the day is because she witnessed the duel between Duncan and Grayson. I like that. Joe found out and recruited her into the Watchers, and now she's in charge. For the old friend role, I would have Keith Richards show up as an old friend. I would also bring back a few of the old cast members to reprise their roles in a masquerade ball flashback during carnivals or Mardi Gras or at Woodstock in the 60s. I'm not sure who I would cast in the other roles. I don't know. I don't want any actor already known for other action franchises. I like these ideas. Colleen's like nailing it here. I love that.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Who do we got here? Oh, okay. I thought this was funny because I remember this. Richard Anderson says, I saw the episode of Suits when Harvey was at a funeral and quoted, "There can be only one." It was brilliant. And I like this idea. Thinking of music. Okay. I like that. Give the members of Queen, give them a chance to like coordinate the music. But I love this. Every time I hear, this is from Richard Anderson, every time I hear Judas Priest, some heads are going to roll, I think of Immortals. Throw in the Judas Priest song. Why not? You know?
I'm down with it.
I thought that would be good.
On the subject of music, something that gets a little overlooked, but would be, it would be weird for the modern audience, but it would fit with the character. If he grew up in a Celtic society, Celtic music is the origin of country and bluegrass. And we kind of did this operatic rock stuff, but like if he was, I mean, think about, it sounds like, oh, okie doke, but like remember when Oh Brother Where Art Thou came out and Dan Timon kind of hit the top of the charts again. You get that, that's also the root of blues music. I mean, the same chord progressions, the same types of music. It leads into that, and you could have maybe a thematic ride that goes from the Gaelic into like some frontier music at some point, and then into modern stuff. And what he's listening to, I mean, it was rock and roll because Russell Mackay was a rock and roll music video director, right. But it doesn't need to be locked into just the musical choices of 1985.
Good point. Yeah, no, they should definitely spread out a little bit. I like that. Simon Keegan, he wrote some cool stuff here. Might mispronounce some of this, so forgive me. He says, I wrote one like this a year ago. My Connor was Irish and moved to the Highlands later in his life. I had him born a little earlier, and the present day was 2008. One of my ancestors was called Connor McAlgahane, McKeegan, so I gave him that name. Connor lives in Hudson Street. When I visited Hudson Street, I noticed a few Irish bars in Greenwich Village. I like that. I made the Kurgan a Viking. You might like this here, Lee. I made the Kurgan a Viking for the original battle since the Irish fought the Vikings. The reason I set present day in 2008 was that I was born in New York in February 08, the week the Giants won the Super Bowl. There were celebration processions, including bagpipe marching bands. So rather than Connor being reminded of his first battle while watching the wrestling, he is reminded of it after hearing the pipes in the procession. My Kurgan was actually called Kurgle. And in my story, before he was a Viking, he was an ancient Babylonian immortal worshipped as a deity. This was based on real mythology. The title of the Sumerian Babylonian deity Enlil was Lu Kurgal. That's L-U Kurgal, K-U-R-G-A-L, meaning God of the mountains. The Kur is his name, and the Kur in Kurgan. Instead of Ramirez, he was Rames, R-A-M-E-S-E-S, the Pharaoh. After all, he was
Ramses,
Egyptian, and he would Ramses. Okay. After all, he was Egyptian, and he would have an Egyptian name. And Ramirez to Ramses isn't that much of a leap. I like that. My Connor doesn't get his katana for Ramirez Ramses. In my story, Ramses gives Connor a Jian Chinese sword, J-I-A-N.
Yep.
Say it, Lee.
Xian.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
In the original story, the sword Ramirez gives Connor is made in 593 BC. There's actually a Chinese sword this old, and he actually did a little link to Wikipedia. And apparently it's still sharp, but Ramses gives it to him as a gift, not for fighting with. Connor gets his katana from Nakano in my story. The family coat of the arms is a white lion. So in my story, that's why Connor has a katana with a lion's head. In my story, Fazil has also stolen the Toledo Salamanca from Ramses, and that's why Connor and Fazil fight. Fazil, excuse me. They are fighting over the sword. A Toledo Salamanca is obviously a Spanish sword, and we know Ramirez worked as a metallurgist in Spain, so I think this makes sense. I like that. He's kind of tying everything together and gives them a reason to fight. And I like this too, Lee. There's a change in the World War II flashback. Instead of the scene, oops, here it is. Instead of the scene in Europe where Connor meets Reitzel, Connor's landing on Sword Beach on D-Day. This is the beach where the Highland Commandos landed, and the commander of that unit was Simon Fraser, the clan chief of Clan Fraser. I like that. That's a nice way for Connor to have a flashback to when he fought the Frasers in Scotland. My Connor sails to Scotland from Ireland when he is banished and stays with MacDonald and MacLeod clans, and that's when he meets Heather MacDonald. Put a lot of good thought into that. That is awesome. What do you think?
That's thorough. I don't know if we can get through it in a whole movie, but
I love the D-Day twist on that. That was really, really cool. I did ask, how would immortals survive in current day? And Colleen Best had some suggestions here. She says, I would have my immortals survive in today's world of technology and culture. They would have picked up skills in theatrical makeup and costuming and would use it to create different identities. If the immortal was a skilled actor, those different identities would be set up to be related to each other. They have them establish a presence in different locations around the world where immortals have homes. Each persona would then have a unique trait that people would meet them, would remember, like a limp, eyeglasses, eye color, manner of speaking, or handwriting. This kind of reminds me of the Scarlet Pimpernel a little bit.
Oh, yes, sir.
You being an actor, you might be able to... Go ahead.
I've got a friend that's her favorite movie, so she'll be happy that you mentioned that one.
Well, I actually watched that just for the first time.
Really?
Because of the Andor Star Wars TV series. Because Mon Mothma had a Scarlet Pimpernel type deal going on, pretending to be one thing while being another. Yeah. And I found that in a podcast. I'm like, I've never seen the Scarlet Pimpernel. And then Aaron was like, well, you got to watch this one. The one from, was it 1983?
Yep. With Jane Seymour?
Yeah. Yes, yep. Jane Seymour. And it was fantastic. So anyway, I like that. And it's interesting here. They said they could also establish a family burial plot on land they own to go to their backstory. The different family members could also be immortals who know your secret and live with you, and also learn the skill of calligraphy so you can, disguise your handwriting. She goes on and does a really good job of that. And she says the rules for the game: holy ground is a place for refuge. Training is allowed there. Killing is not. Immortals are foundlings. No one knows where they come from. No origin stories, honor where they come from. It's a kind of magic. But I would also show that immortals can sense when a pre-immortal foundling is near. My twist to the story, and this is interesting, Lee, I like this. My twist to the story, Colleen says, is if that an immortal deliberately kills a pre-immortal to trigger the immortality, it causes the killer's body to show more of their true age. No quickenings are lost if the immortal is beheaded by a mortal or accident. Just show no immortal close by and then show a foundling being discovered somewhere in the world. Immortals cannot sire children. They can adopt or foster children. The game reboots itself when there is only one immortal. The prize winner is given a choice to grow old and die with no memories of being immortal. If they choose that, then the quickenings and the knowledge are released back into the world to a time before each immortal lost their head. The choice to remain immortal is that they get to pick when in time they want to do over. Then they get sent back into the past with no memories of the future beyond the event they wish to relive. What do you think?
If you lose your memories and you're not that person anymore, like it's the same as getting your head cut off, so it's kind of pointless. Like, I mean, but just that's kind of the first thing that came to my head. Like I was kind of there, and I'm like, so you lose all of the.
So you're saying your memories are part of being your immortality, whether they're a burden or not, right?
Yeah, and
I see your point.
I also and I've come back to this, when we did the review, when the Blu-ray came out for Highlander, and even when I kind of go to bat for season 1 of Highlander the series, these are no longer normal people. These are people that have seen more tragedy and more loss and all that stuff. They have a different relationship to the world. I don't like the idea that they just want to be a normal person again, because there's centuries separated from that. I'd like to see a creative idea on who they would want to be. And coming back to the old guard, you see that there. You see that, and but that's an interesting and well thought out thing. I don't necessarily agree with all of it.
Yeah,
but you can't fault the
work.
work.
She did a fantastic job, but she says something here that really I thought was cool. She goes on regarding the immortal and the aging thing here, and she says the immortal aging suggestion is something Miles Ferguson and I discussed at the Anaheim convention. He joked that it would have been a great way to bring him back as an older looking Kenneth. It says, how about abstaining from quickenings will eventually cause an immortal to age, and they'll eventually die of old age. But if they take another quickening or are killed again to reset their prime. So in a way, what I like about this ideally is that if you want to stay immortal, you have to participate in the game and take someone's head, because then the quickening keeps your immortality going. What if that was kind of like, an incentive to stay living if you choose to do so?
That part I like.
Yeah.
And I think it's been brushed on, but like if the quickening was a conscious part, maybe not speaking directly to the immortal themselves, but if they actually influenced all the interactions, maybe even like the Trill symbiote from DS9, where it's part of them. They can't necessarily separate themselves from it, but then you'd also have that download of information when that symbiote goes to a new host.
Yep, I like that. I see. Okay. Colton Dean said, I think a new Highlander shouldn't focus only on one immortal. It should have an ensemble cast like Game of Thrones, but it should probably start in Scotland for the old school fans. And I think that's really important. And maybe we can dive into this more next when we get into our thoughts, Lee. But I think that would be kind of cool to introduce other immortals that are still alive, because we're not ending this series with the original movie did, or this movie. We're leaving it open. Yes, there will be a final battle between maybe a Kurgan type character or whatever, and whether there's a debt of revengeance thread or something that is like that. But knowing that there's other immortals out there, I think is crucial to keep the story moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, kind of like you said earlier, not writing it into a corner where the prize is won in the first movie.
All right. Any other reactions to these fans? By the way, I want to thank everyone in Highlander Heart and, of course, our Blooded Kings for, participating in this. Anything else regarding those things?
Well, I would say everyone's kind of, you know, the big question is like, how do they survive in the modern world? Like, what about identities? It's like, I mean, we have people doing that all the time. I mean, we have identity theft. We have undocumented people with, you know, working social security numbers, both here and overseas.
Well, I have thoughts about that because that is one of the things we're going to touch on later. So hold on to that thought because that's really, really important in today's technology. And I'm glad you brought that up. But let's go ahead and head on out of Joe's here. And well, unless you still want to get more drunkly. I don't know if you do or not. So
I don't get drunk. Drunk gets me.
All right, let's head on out of Joe's. There we go. Sorry. All right. All right. Before we get into our main segment, okay, this is Let's Make a Highlander Reboot. We're going to take a quick little break, and we're going to let you know what other things are happening on the Fandom Podcast Network. Let's try that again. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. Make sure you don't miss that little corner over there, that blade that you're shaving with your sword saying, there.
You know, like the guy said in Highlander, it's a real smooth shave. So I just
Welcome back.
With, the fancy Highlander katana. This is nice. The Highlander one, made by Daryl Kyle over at Texas Steel Props and Replicas, Damascus Blade. Nice. Fantastic piece. One of the... I always like to break out the toys. You know me.
Yes, that's awesome, dude. I love it. That's cool. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you check out the video on YouTube. Welcome back to Blooded Kings. Let's make a Highlander reboot movie. Okay. We've had some great suggestions from our Highlander fans, both on Blooded Kings and Highlander Heart. And but you know what? I want to kind of dive into the guideline that I put out there. First of all, we wanted to make a reboot movie. We want to pay homage to the original Highlander film, of course. And of course, make sure you check out the new 4K release of it. It's out. And I think that, of course, it should take place with a Highlander in Scotland, because that's how the original started, and all the ties come back to that. It can move on from there eventually, of course, but that is one of my big rules there is let's keep the current story originating from there. Other questions to touch, what we will touch on is the mythology. Can there be only one, or a continuous battle throughout the ages? Is the origins of the immortals explained? If so, what? Or is it left a mystery? Rules. Are the rules the same? No battleground on holy ground. No, one-on-one only. We're going to touch on casting with some actors. Lead actor, of course, lead immortal mentor, immortal love interest, immortal villains, mortal allies. We'll touch on the director and the music, which you did a little bit already. And we just want to say, look, we know a lot of people like there can be only one movie. That's getting tiresome, guys. Okay. Highlander has opened up a mythology that we want to explore more. If it's a reboot, another TV series. Plus, you guys got to realize something. We are newer. We're original fans here, but we want Highlander to live on with new fans. And sometimes in order for that to happen, you got to give them new material. You can always go back to the original and cherish the original. That's fine. But I don't believe in there can be only one. So let's have some fun with this. That's all I want to do with this. And, if you guys have any other suggestions too, please let us know on Blood of Kings. So, Lee, I want to start with you first. You had some picks on some actors, and I love these, So let's go ahead and start with Cooper Andrews from The Walking Dead. You like this guy?
Yeah. He is I have a soft spot for big guy actors because
he's a big guy actor.
Yeah. And we basically get two roles, bumbling idiot or violent sociopath. And he kind of starts off playing bumbling idiot, but he throughout the course of the series really kind of comes into his own. He also has an amazing character in the Shazam movie. He's a foster father, just a really decent human being. And I love seeing, again, a big guy actor getting something. But one of the reasons I brought him up is he's actually a fantastic swordsman. He was acknowledged by the cast of Walking Dead as the best of the swordsmen. They only let him use his sword once on the show, and that was in the last final episodes because big guys are not supposed to be skilled and articulate, which he very much is. And if you watch, I think it's the second to last episode, he has a sequence that shows like he's better than Lenny, he is better than Denai, he's better than pretty much anyone we've seen fight with a sword, and just beautiful, great economy of motion, great flourish, and I believe as maybe not as Castigear, but as a Castigear type character.
So an ally to a Connor type lead.
Yeah, and if you had to kill somebody that the audience would care about, because you have to have that, unfortunately that's a trope in movies, but if we're going to establish somebody as a bad guy, you need to have him do something bad. Okay. And somebody as likable as Cooper Andrews.
Okay. I like that. You sold me.
And he'd definitely do a better fight than Hugh Quarshie. That was not a good fight.
All right, so the next guy comes from the Star Wars universe. And this is who's that as well? Jonas Suotamo. How do you say his last name?
Depending on where you're at in Finland, Jonas Suotamo. Okay. But yeah. But we'll call him Joe.
And Jonas, he of course took over the Chewbacca role, in all of the new Star Wars stuff. And there's a picture of me with him at DragonCon right there. Very cool guy. What part did you think he might be able to fit into? He's a tall actor, by the way.
Yes.
Former basketball player.
Yeah, and he was also one of the bad guys in Willow. I forget which one he is, of the Scourge maybe. But he is a physically imposing person. I think he would be great in a variety of roles because if you look at him here, he looks like a very friendly person. However, even the friendliest of people, when they're huge, can be terrifying. And if you think of the way that Clancy wanted to play Kurgan, and if you think of the way that Greg Whitten originally envisioned Kurgan as kind of this person with nothing left to kind of care about, he could still be very charming and just straight up murder people.
So you think
And
he would make a good villain, so to speak, maybe?
oh yeah, and
Yeah,
I'd love
okay.
to see if he can talk
Okay.
and say things on camera. But I think just the face that we see there, uh, if we have that person as the bad guy, we really put people on their heels because he just looks
You're
so
not
nice.
talking about me in the picture with him. You're talking about actual Jonas, right?
Well, I mean, your name starts with K, so you're gonna die anyways. I mean, that's
All right.
why we haven't gotten together yet.
All right, the next one, we got a lot to get through here. So the
All
next
right.
one is my choice for Ramirez, and I'm glad you brought this. And I'm wondering if you thought of him as Ramirez as well. That's Odette Frere. Of course, a lot of people now know him for his stint on Star Trek Discovery, but of course, we know him from The Mummy and many other series. This guy has always been my first choice for a Ramirez type character, a mentor, an immortal mentor.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He's definitely Ramirez. He's definitely got the charm and the smolder of Sean Connery. He's got the languages down. I don't know if you ever watched Covert Affairs, but he had a recurring role on that where he was speaking several languages constantly. He can fight. He can, again, if you have the old master that dies like Ramirez does, or we're not necessarily rewriting or just reshooting shot for shot the same movie, but he could do that. And you feel like he could teach somebody and they would be like, I should listen to you. You seem like you know what you're talking about.
Perfect choice. I love this. I was really surprised, but very happy for your next choice here. And I like this. Ardashir Radpour. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. I'm actually Facebook friends with him, and I think you are as well. He's an actor. He lives here in Southern California. He's also a stunt man, and a lot of people will know him from his roles in Star Wars television series recently. He's played some aliens on Book of Boba Fett. He's played some clone in Stormtroopers, and he's been very busy on, was it Kenobi? And he's a working actor. He also is I believe I think he loves to play polo as well, so he's good on the horse. And I did a kind of a little search on stuff that he's played. Very handsome guy as well. I want to know, first of all, also fellow 501st Star Wars member. He's part of the 501st, and I love the fact that he has so much pride in that. Great guy. You obviously know him. What did you think to see him in a role in Highlander?
Well, my initial thought was somebody named Amon Fasale should look like somebody that would be named Amon Fasale instead of just another doughy British guy. But also, I mean, I've known him since he did a show, kind of an answer to Forged in Fire that was on Robert Rodriguez's El Rey network with another friend of mine. Shout out to Damon Steph. But that's how he got on Robert Rodriguez's radar, which got him into Book of Boba Fett. But he would do the demonstrations of all these weapons that various swordsmiths, basically the Stagmer brothers, would make just beautiful recreations of historical or film weapons. And he would be one of the few guys they would have to come in and do it, including also a friend of Norm and I, a guy named RJ McKeon, has been on the show a few times.
Okay.
But the guy obviously can act. The guy really has the skill set that you need to be. I mean, he could be a good guy. He could be a bad guy. He could be the Kurgan, honestly.
Yeah.
He could be all these things. But I've gone back and forth with a lot of directors over the years. It is easier to teach somebody to act than it is to be able to do all the fight stuff.
He can do the fight stuff.
Yeah, he is. Go just watch some of his stuff. The dude is amazing with just about any weapon.
Yeah.
Speaking as somebody who is very proud of what I can do, I am jealous of what he can do.
Yeah. Good looking guy, and charismatic, and he's just a very cool guy as well, and he's very humble, and he'll be the first person to shout out other people in their work. And so, yeah, Ardashir, I like that. Okay, the next one we got here is one of my favorites. I love this suggestion. He's always been on my radar for a part in Highlander, not just because he's been an Outlander as well, but Graham McTavish. Of course, I can't get his voice out of my ear because of all of the Modern Warfare games I
Oh yeah.
played. He's done voices for that. Great actor here. What kind of part do you see him in? Part of the Clan MacLeod, maybe? Is that too on the nose there? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've already established that an old Scottish guy can play an Egyptian from Spain. So if they really want to stay true to the original, there you go.
Yeah,
But I also feel like,
he would be a good
you know,
one, a good
an
immortal.
Angus or a Dougal, somebody. Um, the one thing that I think was missing from the Highlander movie is you don't get a connection of MacLeod really being from that world. He just existed there, and then he had to go away.
Right.
Having a relationship and somebody that mattered, other than
Like
well,
maybe he could be the one that adopted Connor, and brought
yeah,
him under his wing, and there's ties there, so that when Connor is killed and then comes back to life, there's a little bit more emotion there, I guess, maybe.
yeah. And one of the things that I was thinking of as we were preparing for this is the fight choreography, because we are a much more sophisticated film going audience now.
Yeah.
As much as I love the first one, the fight choreography doesn't stand up to modern fights at all.
True. Yep.
It's amazing, and it's still used as like a teaching element how to shoot a fight. It's brilliant. But my thought was, at different points in the series, there should be a different style of fighting. And if Connor, or whichever MacLeod we end up going with, learns to fight from his father, and there is a connection that we build there.
I like that. Yeah. Get some skills ahead of time, because if you think about it, Connor went out like a punk by the Kurgan. You didn't even get it. Didn't even clash swords with him, literally. So,
well, he's got a shield, and he's like, I'm gonna move this away from my body because that's a smart move.
Yeah, there should have been more of a struggle there. I love Graham McTavish. He's a fantastic actor, very handsome man too. I gotta give it to him.
Yep.
All right, I like this thought here, Mr. Richard Armitage here. I thought this was a really good call out. I picked out a scene of him wearing some cool stuff here. And he was one of the hobbits, if I remember correctly, right?
He was one of the dwarves.
The dwarves.
Yes, he was
right.
Thorin Oakenshield, leader of the party
That's
of
right.
dwarves.
Yeah.
That was Oin Gloin, Biffer Buffer Bumber, Nori Dory Ori, Philly, and Killy. Yes, I'm that level nerd, everybody.
I love it. Okay, Richard Armitage here. Where do you see him in the role in Highlander?
Honestly, I think he'd be a good Connor.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's the picture you have of him there was when he was in Robin Hood, which was a while back, and he was very good in that. And then we have the Hobbit movies, which came out 2011 or 2012, 13, and 14, something like that. He's was the Aragorn of that series. He was the lead of the first season of Strike Back, which is a fantastic show if anyone hasn't seen it.
Fantastic series, yes.
Yeah, and just a really overall.
Wait, hold on. What character was he again in Strike Back?
He was in the season prior to Scott and Stonebridge showing up.
Oh, okay, I did not see that one. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
That one's harder to get.
Okay,
but yeah, there was the preseason, and spoiler alert: the two main characters die in the end, and then it goes off to the new characters.
I like that.
Yeah, and he can handle a sword, which I think, again, that's a skill set we want. He's got gravitas. He could be a good guy. He could be a bad guy. He could be that immortal that shows up and you think, oh, he's going to be the Ramirez, and then comes for Connor's head. He could be the first kill Connor has.
I love that. I think that's great. Next, I was excited for you to see this because was funny. My dad just started watching Spartacus, and you have here Peter Menash. Is that how you say his last name? Mensa. Okay.
Yeah.
Peter Mensa. Great actor, strikingly good looking, can fight as well. I love this guy. Wonderful choice. Where do you see him in Highlander?
He could be all over. I mean, honestly, he'd be an amazing bad guy. Again, a Castigear character that we could care about. That, again, the Kurgan was never set up really as a great sword fighter. He fought like a really old guy, and then he
Right.
fought like a guy that didn't know how to sword fight in an alley.
He knew how to fight guys and their weakness and get them
Yeah.
in situations and stuff to where he can, have the advantage. So
If we
yeah.
get whoever our bad guy is fighting and believably killing Peter Mensa on screen, I think we establish a great bad guy. Or he
I
could be
could
the bad guy himself.
I could see Peter also being part of Connor's journey through the times in learning how to fight, being a good friend in another country that he helps fight with,
Yeah.
where they have, and then maybe the Kurgan kills him, or he becomes a victim or something like that. I could see something like that as well. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a character that was glossed over in the TV show, but the character of Hamza al-Kahir was given more voice in the book Scimitar, but he was very briefly in Finale. The character of Hamza, like that character, somebody from the Near and Middle East that gives our character a different perspective on life.
And of course, I'm not saying we have to like make a shot for shot or name for name remake of Highlander, but I could see this guy going McLeod, so boom boom, something like that. Okay, next one. I thought this was really cool. Aussie here, if I remember correctly, Mr. Richard Norton, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking, obviously some older immortal teaching Connor the ways. I don't know. What were your thoughts? I love your suggestion of Richard Norton.
Really anything, kind of like you were saying, it doesn't need to be the shot for shot remake. There are certain things that will happen in an action movie, certain beats. As Ben Stiller said, my audience needs to know when they can get up and go to the bathroom. There are these certain characters, but Richard Norton, and you actually have a scene. I promise I wasn't just watching Spartacus and saying, here's all my suggestions. But he had an amazing scene in the final season of Spartacus where he is basically a former gladiator paid to train Marcus Crassus, who's one of the big names of Rome, in gladiatorial combat. And he fights hard and he trains him. And the final test is if Crassus can beat him in a death match, he'll win. And he has this thing, and he's like, that's not fair because I won't kill you because even if I win, I'll die. And so Crassus is like, okay, I'll just write it. It's in writing. You will, if you win, I'll set you up for life. If you lose, I'll put a statue up in your honor. And he has this great fight. And at the end, as he's dying, Crassus is still his friend. And it is not the type of acting that Richard Norton has been asked to do before.
Interesting.
And it is this beautiful scene that is so much a demonstration, again, of what I've talked about. Like, some people just don't get the chance to do amazing work. And this guy has been working since the 70s.
Yes, he's a very accomplished actor, stuntman too, if I think correctly, right? So what do you see him in a role in Highlander then?
I would love to see him fight somebody. Good guy or bad guy. I want to see him fight. He's played a lot of bad guys. He's played a lot of good guys. He's friends with Cynthia Rothrock, who, oh God, I'd love to see her in Highlander. Why didn't I even think of adding her to that list? But
love Cynthia Rothrock.
I want to see him fight again, and I want to
I got an idea. I'm just going to throw this out to you. The idea that Colleen had that I really like, she suggested, is if you stay out of the game for a while, you actually start to age. What if he was known as like one of the most fiercest immortals of all time, and then he decided to just walk away from it, and he's starting to age, and then he's being hunted down because taking him down would either give a quickening, or it would be an honor thing, or a one-upsman thing for whatever the villain wanted to do. And he was just trying to live a life, and he gets one last big fight in before he dies. What about that?
I just need to know who's playing Grayson to his Darius.
I know, right?
and I'm not even joking. I need to see him fighting Richard Armitage for that fight.
There you go. I like
That's the fight that I want to see now.
that. All right, next, and I was happy that you brought this guy up because speaking of Strike Back here, I love this suggestion of Sullivan Stapleton, who was one of this is when I joined Strike Back, and this is the series that I really liked because his co-star Philip Winchester, who I also think would be a good addition to the Highlander universe, but of course we got to see Sullivan here in the 300 sequel, or is it a prequel? I can't remember.
It's a side-by-side cool.
Okay, it's a side cool. Okay.
Yeah, it happens before and after 300.
That's right.
And
I thought this was a great idea. It was his Rise of the Empire 300, and he was the lead star in this. I like this guy. He was fantastic in Strike Back. Where do you see him in the Highlander universe?
I honestly think he'd be a great Connor.
Yeah. Okay.
He's got the skill. He's got the physique. He's got that mysterious nature about him. I mean, if you're looking at these pictures, even when he's, dressed up and camera friendly for, because he was in Blind Spot on NBC for a while, like he can handle a franchise.
Okay.
But he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like a normal person.
Can I give you a suggestion here? Because when I first saw him, I know the obvious that he could play an immortal, he could play Connor. But when I saw him, I thought that if they introduced the Watchers, I would love the fact that if he was like a Joe type character, but frick, he could take care of himself. Because one of my issues with Highlander TV series in general, and also a little bit in the movies, is that with the exception of Horton, normal mortals weren't a huge threat. And I would love to see him being able to take care of himself, whether he was a villain that, whether he became a hunter or whatever it is. I wanted him to be someone that would be feared because if you're going to be a Watcher, why are you an old guy chasing down these immortals? Why don't you be someone that can take care of yourself in case you're discovered, that type of thing. And I that's something I came to my mind.
I like that idea, and keep on ringing the gong. They showed how that you can do it in the Old Guard.
There you go.
They had those guys that were really good.
Yep, that were not immortal. Yeah.
And he can handle fights with guns, knives, bare hands, swords, spears, you name it. This guy, again, has the talent to actually hold down the fights.
If you haven't already, make sure you check out Strike Back with him and Philip Winchester. Man, that show is good. All right, now we get into the ladies that you suggested. I was excited with this part here, Lee, because you came up with some good ones here. One of my favorites, Evangeline Lilly. Got to meet her once, very sweet lady. Of course, now co-starring in the Ant-Man movies. Of course, we know her from Lost. Your thoughts on where Evangeline Lilly could drop into the Highlander universe?
As the Heather, or whoever in the previous life. The reason it popped into my head is she did an interview years and years ago with I want to say Chris Hardwick, where she was doing a really good and very sexy Scottish accent.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like, all right, she's already got freckles. Like, this is just mean. She's got to stop it. Like, come on, woman. But that said, she's also shown that she can handle fights in the Hobbit movies. Regardless of what you think about that, if you watch the behind the scenes of her training, if we're going to have a female immortal, she'd be really good.
L'Oreal, is that the character that she played in The Hobbit? I think
Tariel.
Okay, yeah. Tariel. I loved her role in that. I loved her and the what was it? Who was the character that she was flirting with all the time?
Killy.
Yeah, I loved that relationship. She was great as an elf. Really, really good. So I like that. Good call. Next, I had to look her up. Wasn't sure who Joanna Watts was. Old on Joanna Watts. Cute, redhead, striking eyes. Your thoughts on who you were thinking here for her in Highlander?
Honestly, she had this very small role in Bullet Train that came out this summer.
Yes.
And I mean, again, look at her here. When when I think of, the original Highlander, aside from, all the fights, I really do think of the transitions. I really do think of the interesting artistic choices. Those eyes, that hairline, the jawline, everything there. Can you imagine doing that same transition from her face to Mona Lisa that we had with
Yeah.
Connor?
Now,
Or something similar, like just something. She's timeless. I feel like she'd be either an immortal or she would be,
okay,
again, a Heather.
you touched on it there. Let's throw out Heather for a second here, because the one thing that the original Highlander movie, kind of screwed us with was not showing us female immortals like we got in the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this character right here would be perfect. Like, I would love to see an immortal brother and sister that were brought into a clan and raised together, and they were immortals and they knew each other and they both had their own struggles. And I would love to see what it would be like for, we got to see flashbacks with Amanda and what it was like for women having to deal with immortality back in those days and those ages and such. I think she would be perfect as a co-lead in a Highlander film as a fellow immortal. And I would love to see, especially since we've got to see Charlize Theron in the Old Guard be the lead immortal in the movie.
Yeah.
We need to have a little more balance in this new reboot of having a female immortal being able to take care of herself and not just a love interest. She could be a love interest too, but have her be immortal. This is my pick. I love this pick, Lee.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we agree.
I'm also have a new crush. I just want to mention that.
Mm-hmm.
I like this mention too. Lake Bell, big fan of hers as well. I'm glad you brought up her. She's also is voicing on what's the TV series? I'm just drawing a blank now. Ivy in the I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah. Me too. I can't believe we're like failing at being nerds.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. The Joker's girlfriend, Harley Quinn. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, she does the voice, of course, now of what I just mentioned earlier. I'm trying to brain fart here. Ivy, but I've seen her a bunch of other stuff. I think she's wonderful. Your thoughts on her and where she could fall in the Highlander universe?
What I was thinking with her is somebody that would be a modern mortal love interest for whoever the main character is.
I see. Gotcha.
With Brenda, we had a really intelligent, strong woman. I think that somebody this old isn't going to be as enamored with, just standard beauty, which she is very beautiful, but also with kind of intelligence, strength, poise, a sense of experience. I really think like if she was
just in Wakanda Forever, wasn't she? Was just in Wakanda Forever, right? Didn't she have a small role in that?
She's one of the scientists there.
Yeah, I like that idea. Whether she's like a watcher or someone that could hold her own and not just be a cute face.
Yeah, and even as a love interest, she's not just your typical cute face. She looks like somebody that has an entirely different life, much like our Brenda did.
Yeah, I like that. Good call. All right. Next. Love your next two. You're reading my mind.
Thought you might. Yep.
Rona Mitra. Huge fan of her, of course. I just watched her in Shooter with Mark Wahlberg, but of course, Doomsday, one of my favorite cult films now. She's wonderful in that as the lead. She was also in World, the prequel, the third film came out. She was in that. She was in the prequel of that, but I love her. I think she's great. I kind of see her maybe like a Cassandra type role, an ally immortal or something. But what were your thoughts?
Again, she's already played somebody immortal, powerful. She's already played women that can fight. She's played a lot of strong women. She oddly enough played a competing love interest with Lake Bell on Boston Legal. And I
Yes.
promise I'm not just going to 3 television shows here, but apparently I am.
I
but-
loved her in Boston Legal. I was crushing her big time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when she was dressed as Robin, that was amazing, and brought up some very confusing feelings. That said, with the women that I'm looking at, I wanted to choose. She's obviously very easy on the eyes, but she is somebody that brings presence with her. She was the commander. Man, I really did go to 3 television shows. She's the commander on the first season of, or the first real season of Strike Back.
Was that the second season? I thought that was the second season. I could be
Maybe
wrong.
it was the second season, but yeah, she was the commander in one season.
Yeah, she was on Strike Back, but yeah, like that.
And she had some great fights in there. She had grit. I see her as somebody fighting. I see her as somebody. Again, she could be that Brenda cutout, as somebody that would go into the empty garage and not necessarily be afraid. She's somebody that would, help McLeod hit Kurgan with the steel pipe, something like that. I feel like she's got the guts to either be that character or be a powerful and imposing person.
Yeah, and again, if you guys haven't seen Doomsday, make sure you check it out because she kicks ass in that, and she is just so good in that. So hot too. But yeah, I would love to see her some type of immortal role as well. I could definitely see that. That would be cool. And I think you just put this in here because she's my movie wife, Lee, and that of course is Kate Beckinsale. Yeah. I don't care where you put her in there, but man, yeah.
Yep. Well, I was obviously thinking, well, Kevin's going to love this, and he's probably going to be mad at me for taking his recommendation. But again, she's got the action chops. I mean, she's been doing action since 2002. Was when the first Underworld came out. She's very easy on the eyes. She's got an actual accent. She wouldn't be faking it like a lot of actors might end up having to. She can play a lot of different things. And I mean, if they decide to go a Duncan route, she could be an Amanda.
Dude, you're reading my mind, damn it.
I'm going to stop right there because it just got dark, man.
Yeah, I could see her having the eternal love interest is what I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The one that you don't settle down with, the one that you come around on and you share adventures, you share a love fling. I think that would be great because seeing her in flashbacks in different parts of the world during different times, I would die a happy man if I saw that as an Highlander with her. So yeah.
You know what that makes me think of though is Deborah Unger's character in Highlander 3, or her characters.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Yeah. Well done there, Lee. I love those suggestions. But you know what though? We're not done with the casting suggestions here because I want to give a shout out to Derek Brady. He put some thought into this, and I like this. His thought for McLeod, which I hadn't heard of this guy. His name's Ben Drew, also a musician, also known as Plan B. He says McLeod. He says, I guess he's got a certain look and feel to him, I guess. I don't know him. I think he's a good-looking guy. Interesting choice. I would ask Derek to, give his reasons on that, but he didn't. But he just said Ben Drew. Ben Drew's kind of a younger-looking one. The question is, though, Lee, this brings up a question: is do we actually go with someone who is younger? So if we can bring him back for a trilogy, he doesn't age out. Do we? Because in the original Highlander, McLeod was 18?
Yeah.
Go with someone that actually can pull that off. Your thoughts?
I'd say get somebody.
Because by the way, all the people we've mentioned, this guy is the youngest looking so far.
Yeah, I'd get somebody that's 25 to 27 so that you can get 10 years out of them where, things happen, but we don't age as fast in that time frame.
Okay.
At least as dudes.
Right.
We kind of we hit this thing and then 40 happens. It's like, oh, crap. But
yeah, I know the feeling. Yeah.
and then the morons keep doing stunt work into their late 40s, which is just a stupid idea. I do not recommend it to any of you.
25-year-olds have been playing teenagers for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So I get that. This, but whether it's someone like Ben getting a younger McLeod, I think wouldn't be too bad. But I do like the idea. But a lot of people have mentioned Brady's pick for the Kurgan. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Jason Momoa.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, he goes way back. I got to give it up. He's an Iowa boy like me. We actually went to the same gym at different times. Yeah, he's a great guy. I first became aware of him as running decks on Stargate Atlantis.
Me too.
He held down the fights there. And then the Conan movie, as bad as it was, you can tell that he gave everything he had to it. It's just whoever decided to make the movie decided that Conan was stupid, or the world was stupid and Conan didn't belong in it.
But we got more of a Kurgan type character in Game of Thrones, as Khal Drogo,
Yeah. And I think there's also nuance to the character of Khal Drogo, because he does not start off as a good person. He doesn't really even end as a good person, but there is something about him that people connect to. Because, I mean, there's not a single good thing he did in that show, and yet we mourn his loss.
Yeah.
How do you do that with a bad guy?
Well, he did give in to Khaleesi a little bit there. She let him, take over, if you know what I mean. So he was able to listen to her and, yeah. But
but she was just kind of writing the narrative on the inevitable there. Like, she didn't have a choice in that. Like, it was that.
But hold on.
Him
as the Kurgan, though. I think what I like about him is not will he just physically carry that role, but I think that we could get what we need is a Kurgan backstory. Some people will say no. Clancy is the mysterious Kurgan. But we need some answers there, I think. We want to know why he's doing what he is if we're going to have a villain type him that's searching out McLeod for a particular reason. And he's a good actor, and I think Momoa could pull that off.
Now, I will say I like Clancy's Kurgan. I do think that he would be better at Gregory Whidden's version of the Kurgan. I think that he would...
You mean Momoa would be?
Yeah, Momoa.
Yeah.
Not that Clancy wouldn't have played that, but they didn't give him the chance.
Right.
And I don't think he would be good at Clancy's Kurgan, but that disaffected, dissociated psychopath that is still charming, that Clancy wanted to play, but they wouldn't let him. They just wanted, you're big and scary, so just be big and scary. I think Momoa can play completely... I think with his charm, he could turn the Kurgan into Hannibal Lecter.
A very charming character that you want to learn more about, and he just steals every scene, which Clancy does in his own right. But I do feel like I would love to see a backstory flashback of why he became the Kurgan or the lead villain, whatever you want to say, I
think it would be amazing if they had him as the descendant, as actually being Polynesian or Maori, and being able to lean on his heritage, and
I like that.
And we have not been nice historically to the Maori people. If there was, say while McLeod was on the Rosemary, he was, also part of one of the crews that landed in Hawaii and colonized it. Like, if that was his reason, if he knows McLeod from that, I think that would be kind of an amazing thing, and it would allow that culture to have a place in cinema that it hasn't really gotten yet.
All right, a few more I want to get through here. I loved his shout out here. Derek says, for the mentor, Chow Yun Fat. I love this idea. I think that's really cool. He's a great actor. Obviously has handled a sword and a gun in his time. He also says mortal love interest, Heather possibly, Karen Gillian. Yes, please. Maybe even an immortal. I like that as well. Immortal love interest, Bridget Regan.
Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. Beautiful redhead there. And older Rachel, Joanna Lumley. I like this idea.
All right.
Yeah. So thoughts on those?
Chow Yun Fat. As much as he'd be great as that immortal, what was the name of the guy that was cut out of Highlander?
Oh, Young Dal Kim.
Yeah, that character or the same kind of character. Again, like I said, if we have our bad guy kill a good guy that we believe should win, both morally and in terms of skill, I think that sets up something amazing.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I love Chow Yun Fat anyways. Been a big fan since Hard Boiled. You gotta love a cop from Hong Kong named Tequila. I mean, why wouldn't you have that name? That's amazing. I want to name my first 4 kids Tequila. Tequila 1, Tequila double.
I love it. I love it. By the way, Karen Gillian, yes, throw her in Highlander. Whether she's a mortal love interest, I would love to see her play an immortal as well. Big fan of hers.
We know she can handle fights.
Yes. I had not heard. I had to look up though of Bridget Regan, and I could definitely see her. With that gorgeous red hair, I could see her definitely maybe playing like a Heather type character as well. So
if I'm not mistaken, she was on Eureka for a few seasons and she was really good in that. Exceptionally naughty, which I'm fine with.
Okay, my choice, little on the nose for Connor, if not Connor, somewhere in the Highlander universe, because he's an Outlander. Sam Heughan plays Jamie Fraser. Huge fan of this show. My wife brought me into this, and we've bonded on this. Visited the filming locations. We were in Scotland doing Highlander locations as well. Knows a little bit about swords and fighting in the Scottish Jacobite Wars as well. Mm-hmm. I don't think have you seen the series at all, Lee?
I saw the first season, and then I started making movies, and it was really hard to keep up with much of anything.
Gotcha.
So,
I don't know. What do you think, Sam Heughan?
I think this should be a mortal that Connor kills in a fight.
Interesting.
Basically like a duel with Bassett, but just in a different time. Because if he's not going to be Connor, he has to have an awesome cameo, and I think if he does that duel on Boston Common or wherever it happens to be, maybe at the Seeing Stones upon the hill,
basically a suggestion I had earlier: have him be a mortal that's a threat.
Yeah,
like that. Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and but in the past, because I mean, you can't have him and not throw him in a kilt and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think I think it would be too on the nose to have him as Connor, though.
Yeah,
I've always done that timeless Scottish warrior that lives in the past and the now. So,
all right, we got to first of all, I want to get your thoughts here on. Okay, we do agree that the story must originate in Scotland. Okay, can there only be one? Let's touch on mythology really quick here, Lee. Can there be only one? Is this a continuous, or is it like a continuous battle through the ages? Meaning that if there can be only one, you're basically saying that eventually they have to kill each other off, and there has to be one. And why would he want to be the one left? Does he gain a certain power? Whatever the prize is, do we have a prize? Personally, my opinion is I'm not necessarily saying there should be a prize, but I think there should be a reason why these guys do have to continue to fight. I like the idea of aging out of it a little bit, which keeps them in the game if they want to. But then you get immortals like Connor, who really doesn't fight until he has to fight. So what are your thoughts?
I think it would be interesting if these are rules that everyone believes, but nobody understands why. They don't necessarily have to be true, but because who told them there can be only one, and how do they know?
Right.
That
was brought up with one of the fans. Of what?
Yeah.
Who told them these rules? you know?
And if you know, I mean, now we know that it was General Katana, that like this is how you serve your prison sentence. So it makes complete sense, obviously.
Sorry, all I
But
can hear is Adam O'Brien just standing behind him going, "There, Katana, one of the best."
guy who never won a fight.
Yeah.
But like, if there is a philosophical search, you know, if you've got one character, like why can there be only one? If that's our main character, um, there's an idea. It kind of started way back when we did one of the Mythos episodes, but I don't think that Connor just has to be 450 years old. If he was older than that, you know, if we gave him, you know, send him back to like the Roman or early medieval period, um, there is a Saint MacLeod that existed that was part of Brendan's voyage, which was familiar to some Highlander fans. You know, 3 weeks crossing the Atlantic in a rowboat with a bunch of Irish monks. That's Brendan's voyage. Saint Brendan. It's one of the more famous Irish Catholic myths,
Okay.
stories, legends. That would also put him in a boat with Mythos. That would also have him with a perspective over time of watching empires really rise and fall, which Connor didn't see. He saw the British Empire sort of fall, but he didn't care.
Okay. You just touched on Mythos, and we haven't really brought him up yet. And I think it's important to address that right now. And thank you for reminding of this, because I think there needs to be someone like Mythos, like we learned in the Old Guard, someone very, very, very old and ancient, where not necessarily they started it all, but they were around enough to know why it was and why these rules are being laid and done. And whether it's an old manuscript or chiseled on a rock somewhere, that these were the suggested rules that immortals go by. Now, I'm not saying that we have to know how immortals happen. I kind of like the idea of not knowing, leave it out there, you know, because that beautiful line of why, you know, why are there
Why does the
stars in
sun
the
come
sky?
up?
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
that Ramirez says in the original film. But you mentioned Mythos, and I think that, and there's several of those characters that I thought could
Oh
be a
yeah.
Mythos type character that you mentioned that, you know, we just forgot to bring him up. But I think that as you were going into the history of Mythos and Connor or whatever, Duncan or whatever it is, I think it's important to consider that as well, that we have some type of origin mentioned. Like, I think the rules are important to say how they were inspired from, because there's a certain honor to the
Yeah.
fighting of these warriors. And I think that gets lost a lot in current day warfare. There's an honor code. And I think that, you know, in order to serve this honor, you have to respect the honor, you know, and that's why someone might want to search out an immortal that stayed out of the game for so long because they were so badass at one time, and that challenging them would be an honorable thing to do, you know? And I think that's important to Highlander. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea, and I think it would address some dropped storylines from Highlander.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
we bring up Mythos, like he's the oldest immortal, and other than the Horseman plot line, that never mattered again.
Yeah.
And even then, it was like not important. You know, obviously it was the Highlander, and it had to be about Duncan. But you also have the dropped plot line of that book that Duncan finds in Darius's study.
Right.
What's in there? What does he know? Mythos's diary in Adam Pearson's apartment. The hieroglyphics
Yeah.
were hard to decipher, but the Greek was amazing. You should have been there. You know, like that type of conversation and that type of study. You know, I mean, if this is the Highlander expanded universe,
Okay.
that would be a great direction to go.
I think it's important to clarify the rules and the reason why, because I think one-on-one combat should be a thing. No fighting on holy ground. Let's say in the freaking movie why we don't fight on holy ground, because Pompeii happens or whatever it is. Bad stuff happens around you. and destruction. It can't happen. That's why you don't do it on holy ground. One-on-one combat, like let's say, let's say a couple of guys try to team up, or there's an unholy alliance type thing. Let there be accountability for that. Like for a good example is this in John Wick. What's her name broke the rule in the first film fighting on the Continental, and the people in the Continental killed her because she broke the rule. Let there be rules. Like if you break these rules, then you become a target and you just become assassinated or something like that. And that these are rules and suggestions that were put down by the ancient immortals, whether it's on a script, like I said, chiseled on a rock or something like that. That would be a great story to at least set some ground weight to explain why they are doing what they're doing. Maybe, I don't know.
You brought up an interesting thing about honor, that the rule of one-on-one, I think, partly applies to honor and partly applies to dishonor, and more, I think, than a mystical rule. Imagine that you're somebody fighting 2-on-1. You're a cowardly piece of crap, and so is the guy fighting with you. Speaking as a bouncer, everybody that fights in a group against one person, they're cowards. So two things are going to happen. We've established that the quickening goes to the closest person.
Yep.
When Jacob's girlfriend was killed, she wasn't killed by Jacob, but he got the quickening.
Yep. Great quickening scene.
So if I'm, fighting 2-on-1, I'm not necessarily guaranteed to get the quickening of the head that I take. Exactly. I also have this piece of crap fighting next to me, who I know can't be trusted, who I know has no honor, and I'm going to be weakened from, my quickgasm, and that guy might just take the opportunity to take my head.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So I think that could be the moral thing. I think the idea of holy ground, as much as I like the Pompeii notion, I do like the idea of the gentleman's agreement, like that we just respect this. Like if you go there and you stay there, we'll leave you out of it. Just like it's weird to bring up the animated series, but the Jetadors, the ones that threw their swords down and I'm not going to fight. I'm out of this. It's up to you now. I think that having, these aren't the standard violent people that you and I deal with. These are immortal warriors. These are ones that have fought for centuries. That I think even the worst of them would recognize what that means. And I think that anyone violating it would make even the other bad guys angry.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is there should be some accountability for even attempting to fight on holy ground, though. There has to be something.
Yeah.
Whether it's the continental rules in the John Wick world or something like that, but something that if you're going to do it, you're going to pay for it. It's not going to turn out the way that you like it. So now, can I just mention this real quick? Okay, so I think we've got some good mythology going there. I think that's great. We touched on the rules. I like that. We've touched on the cast and everything like this. I want to touch on how you would, as immortals, how you would hide and survive in today's world of technology. Can I just throw a couple of rules out there that I've been lobbying for in a reboot of Highlander if it were to take place, in nowadays times? First of all, quickenings. If you take someone's head and you kill them, their body just goes away. There's no evidence of it whatsoever. Maybe
Buffy style.
Yes, having a headless body around brings attention, but yeah, Buffy style. Also, too, around electronics, a quickening is kind of like an EMP blast, and it will disrupt any technology. Even two immortals coming together, I would love that. Like cameras would start to flicker, cell phones not working as well. Something that messes with technology when immortals are around, and that, like when we have an issue with our cell phones, it's like, why aren't they working or something like that? Why isn't my network down? There's an immortal nearby. So it helps kind of protect them around some of the problems of having wonderful technology today, because we saw that challenge in the old guard, which I loved.
Yeah.
But it came around to bite him a little bit.
True. I would say, how do you establish that as something that existed in the Stone Age?
Well, it wasn't recognized in the Stone Age, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but would this be something that the quickening actively does to protect the person? Or is this just a side effect? Because I had a, we've all written our fan fiction, obviously we're hearing this, but I had this thought, like, what if Benjamin Franklin was friends with an immortal and had that idea for the kite and the keys, and all that kind of stuff for transferring electricity and all that. And we do see Ramirez able to kind of summon the quickening in Highlander 1 and again in Highlander 2. If that is something, a power that is pre-established in canon at this point, if that is something that they can do, maybe somebody figures it out in the story. Because, now we know that it exists in the past.
Do you mean using it to kind of not only like protect themselves during a fight, like creating like this bubble around the fighters, or what do you mean exactly? Like harnessing
like an active defense mechanism, like they realize like they can do this.
Gotcha.
So like they, summon the power of the quickening for, that moment, most people are given a full measure of life, but never use it. But if you can take it all in one place, and sometimes you can do something remarkable, like
well,
lift a fan and then let it drop on you.
We have the immortal buzz, immortal sensing others, and obviously we keep that, and that's good. But having the quickening, obviously, I like the idea of getting the quickening, becoming more powerful, maybe extending your life. We're on that thread again. I love that idea, Colleen. I think that's great. Extending the life, but also using the power of the quickening in maybe a less destructive manner, because obviously, you don't want to have a quickening inside your den. We've talked about that because of what happens to you. But I just think that the quickening and the power that immortals have, that should disrupt something. That's something that I think that should grow havoc on electronics, or the ability, as you mentioned, maybe getting the power of the quickening and using it kind of like as a cloak, not a literal cloak, but using it to hide, using it to disrupt things. Like if you could pull the power from the quickening down just a little bit and going, you know what, I'm going to short out these cameras, or do something kind of cool like that, making the quickening, like, the more you get from a quickening, the more heads you take, the more powerful you are to manipulate the power of a quickening. Maybe, I don't know, like that.
Well, there was a Matthew McConaughey movie about 20 years ago where him and Bill Paxton played demon hunters, and that was one of the, like, they were kind of like the Boondock Saints, except they killed demons. And
I'm sorry, what movie was this, and why have I not seen it?
I'm trying to remember it, but they played demon hunters, and one of the brothers decides, like, this is wrong, and tries to stop him, and there's a big murder mystery. But one of the things is they have this innate power to just be blurry on video cameras and to be forgotten by people.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And it's a very odd movie.
Is this in the 90s or something?
Early 2000s. I want to say 2002.
Okay.
Or maybe very late 90s. But I remember I was talking to a friend of mine about Boondock Saints. Oh, you got to see this. And she brought this movie out for me. God, what was that one? It's going to bug me.
That sounds cool. I gotta check this out. There was Traveler. He was in Titanic, Twister, Simple Plan, Mighty Joe Young, U571, Vertical Limit, Frailty.
That's the one.
Frailty.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that. Okay. All right, I got you. All right. Okay. Cool.
But yeah, that was a power that they had in that movie. So.
Okay.
It's one that's already happened on cinema that people don't think is ridiculous.
Having something that the immortals can possess to help them hiding in the real world, because as we touched on, how do they hide? How do they stay under the radar of mortals and watchers watching them and stuff like this, and living for hundreds of years, creating new identities, having some type of attachment to this quickening, being able to manipulate a little bit. I kind of like that idea. But also, you were touching on earlier about hiding in the real world. You know, Colleen made some suggestions. Elaborate on that.
Well, it's something that happens all the time. We have identity theft. Richie was dabbling in it for Grace, I believe, in Saving Grace. The regardless of how you feel about it, but undocumented workers are everywhere. And there are some people with working Social Security numbers that weren't officially born. It's not difficult at all. It happens constantly, every day. You'll see it everywhere. We just like to think that it's tricky, but it's the majority of people don't care about anybody else around them.
Oh God, what is the name of the Chow Yun-fat and movie? Oh gosh, the one he did in the 90s. And
Replacement Killers?
Yes, Replacement Killers. And he goes,
I would like to buy forged documents.
Exactly. How about this? Okay, we answer that question that there is a group of either immortals that help other immortals, whether they're on holy ground or whatever, so they're not fighting, help them assume new identities, have immortal safe houses in other countries, you know.
Only if we bring Mira Sorvino back to the screen. She is one of my ultimate screen crushes. She was amazing in that movie.
Yes, she was.
You know, and she handled the fights really well.
Yep.
She was one of the
she was the forged she was the forged document expert, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that there should be a Highlander version of that. Maybe it's a family or something, and that whether you're evil immortal or whatever it is, you have nefarious reasons, or you're one that just wants to move on, you get assistance from this group. You know, kind of like the Watchers, but an immortal version of it. The ones that aren't in the game, the ones, and they don't have to all be immortals, but they could be people that know about immortals that help them. Because they realize their value, that, you know, this guy who's now, you know, apparently was seen killed, but he's not really dead. He's got money left behind. What happens to that? You know, maybe assumes another identity. They help piece those pieces together. You know, like, hey, look, I need to get out of Morocco. I was seen on camera or whatever, you know, I need a new identity. I was seen dead, but I wasn't, you know, get me out of here, you know. And there's something in the new world that assists with that a little bit. I think might be kind of cool to do, but it dates back like hundreds and hundreds of years, you know. I think that would be kind of cool to do that. Your thoughts?
I think that'd be a great idea. And I think these would be people that developed a support network of some sort.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and we've seen, you know, there are those that build up the businesses. Not to bring up the Black Tower, but I mean, the Black Tower is a perfect example of it. You know, you've got whoever Brian James played. I always forget his name, but Pig and Crest Linen's still a pig.
The Cross of Saint
Antoine, yeah.
Antoine, yeah. Yeah, where he bettered himself and got rich, but still was a bad guy, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I like that. So I think, okay, so this podcast that we're doing is let's create our own Highlander reboot. Well, in a creative process, you have people like us, you have writers, you sit in a room, you write stuff, and you come out with ideas, and then you go to the next phase. Well, we're just doing the first phase right now. This is what we did. We got in a think tank. We asked for help from our fans on Bloody Kings and Highlander Heart, and all of us that would, you know, wondering if we're ever going to get another movie. I don't know. But I have a feeling, Lee, of all the suggestions that you and I have put out there, our fans have done, I think it's better than whatever's going to come out eventually. I don't know. Just because we know the world so well, and we wish that whoever's doing this Chad. He seems to know the world well. I hope he's paying attention to us.
There is one recommendation I can't believe I forgot to make for the bad guy.
Yes, please.
And based on who he's been, in previous versions, always, Ramirez describes him the perfect warrior, cunning, violent, all that kind of stuff. You've got somebody that has to have, passed silently down through the ages, living many secret lives, probably somebody that speaks a lot of languages. So this is somebody that can fight, somebody that can speak a lot of languages, somebody that's terrifying. If only you had a co-host that spoke 7 languages, that had more black belts than the J.C. Penney's men's department, that knew how to use all the swords, that is physically imposing, that has done all sorts of weird things, that has a background in stunts, that is actually still a working bouncer from time to time. So at 46, I can still intimidate people into good behavior. I'm just gonna say, Chad, I'm your Kurgan. You're not gonna get better than this, man.
Make it happen. Make it happen, man. Or at least teach the Kurgan how to fight. That's all I'm saying. Get Lee in there. Get him to do it. There you go.
Because it's easier to teach me how to act than it would be to teach anybody how to do what I do. And I can ride horses and I can shoot.
Can you ride horses and shoot? Yes, you can.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I even got to do it on a movie one time. So
get Lee in there, damn it. All right, well, let's wrap this up. This has been awesome. All right, this has been Blood of Kings. We're on 168 right now. This is great. And we have just made a Highlander reboot movie. Well, we've laid out the outline, which I think is important. I think we've got good stuff to build on here. We've got some great casting ideas here. But you know what? I want to be surprised. If I want to see some people we haven't seen before, I think it would be great. But I think we've done a good job, Lee. Thank you for coming on. And I missed you, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, man. It's I know my weird world of making movies has made it hard to do the podcast, but this has been such a fun part of my world the last few years. The luck of being brought on as your new co-host 2 weeks before COVID started. You were the only person besides my dad that I talked to for a long time. And no offense, but you're not as annoying as he is.
All right.
but no, it's been an amazing ride. And once COVID ended, I ended up getting more and more work. Once my dad, his health got better, I took even more and more work. And I kind of forgot to go back to the well for a little while. So I appreciate your patience with me. I appreciate everyone out there that listens to us. I have not obviously forgotten about Highlander. I'm even kind of doing my own little season 1 Adrian look. I got the turtleneck and looking like a little. I got my actual hair, unlike Adrian did in that season. So, haha.
Well, speaking of, I want to give a shout out to our good friend Adam O'Brien of the Lethal Mullet Network. He has dove headfirst into the Highlander pool, and I think he's on season 4 now. And he's been doing some fantastic posts on Blood of Kings, engaging us with some cool ideas and Highlander discussion. And he is now a full-on Highlander fan of the TV series as well as the movies. We're gonna have to get him on to get his reaction to it. So it's been great. But
we do also need to tell him to stop diving headfirst into other pools, especially like the shallow end. Buddy, you don't have that many brain cells left. You can't keep doing that trick.
But he's one of us now, so I'm glad he's with our group. So, but let's go ahead and get some contact information here. Of course, this is Blood of Kings. Are part of the Fandom Podcast Network. Please check out our network for all of our other awesome podcasts. Our main master feed is fpnet.podbean.com. And if you're listening to this and you're not watching this, please check out our YouTube channel, Fandom Podcast Network, and check out this video of Blood of Kings. And you can check out our other great videos as well from our other shows. Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, which of course include Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Please check out fpnet.podbean.com. You can check out the Blooded Kings master feed on there as well. We are also on Twitter and Instagram, Blooded Kings. And please, if you haven't already, as we mentioned before, we've got a wonderful Facebook group, Blooded Kings, a Highlander fandom group. Check that out. And we also have our Blooded Kings sister page, the Highlander CCG collectible card game and gaming discussion group page. It has now become the Facebook group if you are interested in any Highlander gaming, especially that CCG group there. So they're keeping that gaming alive, and they are still playing that, which I love. You can email us directly at bloodedkingspodcast@gmail.com. I am Kevin Reitzel. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Lee, where can we find you, sir?
You can find me in a dark alley, hacking away with a broadsword at 2:00 in the morning. Otherwise, you can find me on Instagram at The Way of the Way. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Lee Fillingsness. You can also catch Madman Road Productions and Double Action Martial Arts, my business pages.
Nice.
Did want to say, in the aftermath of everything that happened on Rust, regardless of anybody's feelings on that, there were some very serious safety issues. I spent far too much money in the last 2 years building up a prop armory for the Midwest. I have several hundred firearms now that are all completely safe, and that's just been posted on the Double Action page. So
awesome. Fire safety, more important now than ever. So thank you for mentioning that. You can support Blooded Kings on our reviews. If you've got Apple Podcast or iTunes review or whatever your podcast platforms, give us a shout out, give us a 5-star. We'd appreciate that. Also, we've got a TeePublic store. If you would love a Fandom Podcast Network or a Blooded Kings t-shirt, make sure you head on over to TeePublic. That supports us as well. We're working on next show. Probably going to hit the Highlander 4K release. We're going to talk about the special features on that. And we got some other ideas down the pipe. We got some great suggestions from you guys on Blooded Kings as well. So thank you guys for doing that. Lee, thanks again for coming on, man. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to 2023 and more Highlander discussion.
Yes, sir. It's good to be back.
Awesome. Well, I'm Kevin. On behalf of Lee, thanks everyone for listening, and join us again next time here on the Fandom Podcast Network for another episode of Blooded Kings, a Highlander podcast. That sensation you are feeling is the quickening. We are one. We are immortals.
Farewell, dear shitheads.
Goodbye, everyone.